As a holistic plastic surgeon, you really emphasize keeping or enhancing people's unique traits. And I'm really curious how you think about changing somebody's face while enhancing it.
Plastic surgeon, we've gotten much better in the last 25 years at doing our work. Compared to the days of my training, which is, it's hard to believe, over 30 years ago. And so really, I think what we're seeing is oftentimes an attempt to go for perfection. And technically, you can get much closer. You can make somebody look so close to perfect in a photograph that in real life, they're scary. And I think that this is the reality we're in. And I really had the epiphany moment when I was on the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, their board of directors. I'm a big art fan. And basically what I realized in meeting all these amazing artists in different media was the idea that the best art had individual expression. And really plastic surgery by definition is a form of scientific art. And I felt like, okay, if we have all these tools to make somebody look better, you don't want to make it look like something that is out of basically a computer. And so that started me on this path of less is more. And I came up with different doctrines over my career that fortunately have been followed by many of my colleagues, like the 85% rule, which is a simplified concept that, you know what, even though you can go to 100%, filler is a great example, go to 85%. Don't shoot not to go past 90%. Leave room for imagination. And some of my best work over the last decade, especially on some very famous faces, has been that rule in mind. And most of the people in my mind, and again, I have Midwest roots. I know you have Midwest roots, that the idea, or at least a Midwest history, is the idea that really nobody should really be able to tell that you've had work done. At least that's my view. So I've tried to live this approach, and I believe as I've gotten better at plastic surgery, I can get away with that. I know how to do things in a way where I can hide. I have a very light footprint, and it's plausible. A lot of my clients are able to say they've never done anything and get away with it, even though I've had a hand in it. So I've said a lot in a short time, but that's my philosophy. It really has more holistic.
Well, I'm particularly curious about your philosophy on beauty. And I want to preface the question with my personal philosophy has grown over the years. When I was in high school or college, social media popped into all of our lives for the first time. And I did think that beauty was so much more about perfection. And as I get older, when I watch TV or film, I love looking at the imperfections of people's faces. And I think truly, I'm not just saying it, that is what makes them more beautiful. I mean, I'll give Erin Andrews as an example because I'm a broadcaster, and she has a very distinctive nose and she's never touched it. Mm-hmm. And she could have, because she has a lot of side profiles in her work and on TV. And when I had always considered getting a nose job, I would think about her. And I'm so glad now that I'm older that I didn't touch it.
I'm so glad you didn't either, because I would have been crying.
Well, I'll go sideways. It's a very...
No, it would have been, your nose fits your face, and you have a beautiful face. It fits you perfectly. And I mean, Erin, that's a great example. That is a great example. And I personally agree with it. When the final analysis, it's one of these things where, it's no incentive on my part to talk people out of doing plastic surgery. I mean, I make a living, I'm able to live a lifestyle, etc. But at the same time, I've reached a point in my career where I can. And ultimately, I think like for you, I would have kicked you out of my office too. I would have said, why are you, what are you going for? What are you after? And so on, because
Do you kick people out
I
often?
do. I do. And my staff will joke about it. Like I will probably once a week in the nicest way,
Yeah.
I will say, I got to think about that. And then I'll think about it. I will thoughtfully digest what they're after. I'll look at their pictures. I'll commit the time.
Yeah.
And then I will give them an answer. But usually my gut instinct is right every single time. And I can't tell you how many people have come back to me 5, 10, 15 years later and have said, I'm so glad you talked me out of this. I'm so glad for X, Y, and Z reasons. And unfortunately, I have other cases where they go elsewhere because they didn't believe that was the ideal move. And then they come to me because they know I can fix it.
Right.
So, which is harder and it's traumatic and all the things. But I think this whole idea of everyone else, like our innate beauty, the secret is finding a way to say, okay, I can make this subtle alteration, or I can preserve where you are in a way so that you age in your best way, that you look in your best way. And that's the secret.
In that vein, I'm curious what the difference is between looking refreshed and looking done. Are there certain markers?
I think the classic marker, which is the reason why fillers have gotten such backlash. Fillers are, I think, amazing. They're amazing tools, but they're powerful and they last a lot longer than anybody thought, including myself. And they can migrate. So I think really, to me, in the last 5 years, maybe six years, that's where fillers got a very bad rap because people were going 100, 110, 120% of what was there. And when you go that far, I have colleagues who look unrecognizable. They're because they have access, it's easy, they can inject themselves, etc. But literally you can't, their eyes have been lost in their sockets because there's so much filler here and they can't even move normally. And so I think that is an example where and it's a cautionary tale of how and where somebody can go too far. Think about it. If you're a dermatologist or plastic surgeon and you can inject yourself, which, by the way, I inject myself with Botox as an example. It's not that hard to do Botox. Filler, totally different. I've never tried to do it to myself. Yeah. It's a totally different paradigm because you're looking at a reflection and you lose all depth perception. So what ends up happening is you become used to the change and you say, that's not enough, I need more. Well, there are lots of patients who come who have a similar reality where they ultimately, lose all perspective on what is good and what is too much. And then they get lost in it. Because this is such an important point you just brought up. The idea of how someone can do too much and get lost in it is what I call a distortion vortex. And what that means is someone sees and feels the excitement of looking better. So they get some put in, whether it's a filler, surgery, you name it, laser. And they look and they're like, I look so much better and I'm so psyched and everything is perfect. I want more. But the psychology of it is very similar to any addiction. Yeah. You get this rush of dopamine from looking and seeing yourself transformed. You want another hit.
Well, in LA, I always say there's this sort of new ethnicity that's been created here. And it's the ethnicity of a plastic surgery face. And there's this look, and everybody has the same nose and the same lips and the same cheeks. And they're not all going to the same surgeons. It's just this look. And I'm not against plastic surgery, but I am sort of against the look.
Making a new species is not the goal of plastic surgery. It is not. And I could not agree more. You are so right. And I think what we're living through, fortunately, I think we're coming out on the other side of it, because I was one of the first to, and that's probably why I got the tagline of holistic plastic surgeon. I was one of the first to really talk about thoughtful plastic surgery and natural results. This goes back almost 20 years. And so I think finally, and especially the new generation of plastic surgeons, if you look at social media, that concept is all over the place now. Like, people are moving towards this idea that, less can be more, but it's because, frankly, we're scaring away potential patients by making people look like a different species.
So a few years ago, there was a Real Housewife named Sonia Morgan who got a facelift. And it was the first facelift that I had seen that anybody had talked about publicly that I thought looked good. And I was like, okay, maybe technology is getting better. Is it possible to have a facelift and still look like a version of yourself?
1,000%. I mean, that is my calling card, is really making things look natural and anatomically appropriate. I think there are different moves, for example, now, but again, this goes to the whole thing I said at the very beginning of technology. There's technology to remove glands in the neck. There's technology to remove bones and cartilage in the neck or the face, or restructuring. You can do all kinds of things, but the art is in not getting carried away and making somebody look like they're. And there's this obsession now with necks, for example, of where the neck becomes excavated. It's like, oh, I want my neck to look so perfect and there's nothing there. But what people don't realize is that, in cancer surgery and head and neck cancer surgery, you remove those glands for cancerous reasons. And that is a very specific look. And I have colleagues who are doing things that are reminiscent of cancer surgery. And so to me, it's kind of this thing, of, should that be the goal? We have the technology, but should that be the goal? Should the obsession with a neck that is perfect, where you don't see any cords or columns and so on? I mean, I have 18 and 20-year-old boys. They have little cords. I mean, am I going to go operate on them? I don't think so. I think ultimately, as I say it makes so much sense. But if you're somebody coming in and you have especially in Los Angeles, you have these talented doctors who have capabilities, and they're all within half a block of each other. It's hard to, number one, know what to do and what not to do, and two, everybody's trying to outdo the other one. So guess what? That's not a winning battle. So I would tell anybody, and this is where hopefully I can make a consumer-friendly announcement, is the idea that, number one, if somebody is thinking about, I want to do X, I want to do this laser, I want to make my face look less tired, or whatever it is, the first thing you should do, you tell the doctor, I want to be conservative. That is the first thing you do. Because if you set that landscape, number one, most doctors will be like, oh, thank God. And then the second part of that is they will be able to give you all the options without feeling pressured to hit a home run.
And if you're at the right doctor, because I have Botox, and I went to a place in LA and said, I'm really conservative. And by the look on her face, I was like, we're not a match. And I went back to Chicago to the guy that I always go to, because he's conservative about it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wish that patients knew coming in? Anything that they should be asking, or things that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a couple of things that I think are big mistakes. Number one, I think it absolutely is imperative to at least hear one or two, more than one or two options for any given issue, because now we're in a technological reality where they do exist.
Mm-hmm.
I think number two is the idea, and this is again where I got the holistic kind of moniker. If someone is going through a major life stress, like, a parent died, or there's some major upheaval, divorce, you name it, a big negative event in life, you have to give yourself time to heal before you think about something elective.
I'm so glad you said that. It's so much easier to change your face than it is to deal with grief or to deal with like a job loss or whatever. And so to give that time is so important.
It's so critical, because I do believe, the stress hormones and so on that go with this, plus just the psycho-emotional parts, you put your procedure at high risk. I also think really having a clear-cut priority list. So all the time I'll get somebody who comes in now because of my reputation. They'll say, okay, my face is yours. What would you do? And I always put it back on them to say, honestly, when you woke up this morning, what stood out to you as not recognizable? Like, what is it that you see? Or if it's somebody who's younger, it's more, well, what was it in your personal journey that led you to say, you know what, I'm thinking about this every day and I need to do something? Like, what is that one thing?
That's a great question.
You'd be shocked, because every time I've been surprised. And I think that's the advantage of somebody who's more experienced I earn these gray hairs, is the idea that you kind of know the questions to ask to get at the heart of what's going on. Similar to you when you're interviewing somebody, you know how to get me going, and probably you may want to shut me down, but it's the secret of understanding those questions. So much of what is kind of both surgical and non-surgical cosmetic medicine is about what you see and what you're going to do about it. And there's very little time spent to the why. And I'd say that the biggest piece of advice I would give anybody is, number one, write down why you're doing it and be prepared to talk about it at the interview before you do a thing.
So I'm going to brag about you for a minute. You already know your resume, but I was pretty in awe when I was researching University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine for your residency. You did general surgery at University of Michigan Medical Center, followed by plastic surgery training at Northwestern University. And then you received a special facial and eye cosmetic training in Honolulu, New York, and Atlanta. So I was particularly interested in your special facial and eye cosmetic training because in LA, the biggest trend right now is upper bleph, which is basically, for anybody listening, it's like eyelid surgery, right? You kind of take the skin away from the eye.
Yes.
So my curiosity around upper bleph is this going to age well? Because all of these trends that happen, the buccal fat pad, that was a big trend. I don't know how well that's aging.
It doesn't. And by the way, you hit the nail on the head. What's old is new is the saying. Buccal fat pad removal was a big trend in the 70s. And then it largely was abandoned because it did not age well. I think for blepharoplasty, one of the things that I would say is it really depends and it gets back to that story of why. If somebody's doing it because they don't like the wrinkled skin and that's it, but they don't have any real hooding, it's just a textural thing, removing the skin is not the answer. The other thing that is often missed, like you have beautiful brow arch.
Thank you. If
the brows are heavy, doing an upper blepharoplasty is the wrong thing to do as a standalone. And ultimately, the biggest thing I learned in fellowship, which has aged really well, is the concept that you have to stabilize the brow first before you think about doing anything to the eyelid. Like if the brow is naturally sitting in a nice arch and it's not hooded, it's not going into the eyelid area, then you can evaluate for excess. Again, though, the most important thing for upper blepharoplasty is not scooping out everything, because then that does not age well. That actually will look certainly potentially haggard as somebody ages down the line. And so that's a huge part of this is you have to, and again, this would be a question to your surgeon, is do I feel or should I feel that my brows are an issue here? And that needs to be part of the discussion. An experienced ophthalmic plastic surgeon, such as myself, is it's centered on the idea that you have to look at the composite. There's so much interconnectivity between the upper eyelid and lower eyelid and the forehead, and these all are moving parts together. And again, the idea of harmony in terms of these structures is critical. But an upper blepharoplasty is an easy operation to do. Yeah. I mean, on surface, meaning you don't have to necessarily be an eye specialist to do an upper blepharoplasty if you're a trained plastic surgeon. The problem is if you are not nuanced, and you're right, there's this big trend of very young women having this done. And again, it's part of the backlash of fillers and Botox. Potentially that plays poorly because a lot of these individuals will find themselves saying, I don't like the wrinkling after, like down the road. And the wrinkling is going to come because in essence, they haven't either addressed the brow or the real issue they were after was the wrinkling around the eye, which could have been managed with things like Botox or managed with other techniques that are short of surgery. So wow. I think that's kind of how I frame it. And even though I'm a specialist, I've written books about eyelid surgery. I've invented a couple of operations for the eye area. To me, I always look in the back of my head, can I make this person get by with Botox first? That's always what I think. Can I make Botox work first? And if there's a question, I strongly encourage them to try it to see if they like it, because there's nothing worse in my mind. And I've seen lots of patients who have had eyelid surgery in all different kinds of places. I've been referred to by other plastic surgeons. And the truth is, had they done a thoughtful assessment, they would have realized that patient would have been more happy with Botox than they would be with surgery.
Wow. I know that you are a proponent of non-invasive procedures, but I didn't realize that you had invented some eyelid surgeries. That's pretty remarkable.
So when I first started out in practice at Northwestern, this was back in 99, 2000, after fresh off of my training, and that training was in depth. It was reconstruction around the eye. It was doing things for cancer. I mean, it was in depth as well as cosmetic. At that time, a huge fad surgically was a mid-face lift. The mid-face lift was done by making an incision in the under eye and then lifting up the cheek from the under eye. The problem was the dynamics of the interplay between the lower eyelid and the cheek. The lower eyelid was not strong enough. So what was happening is there were all kinds of people all over the country that were coming in like this.
Oh no.
Oh
For
no.
everyone listening, the eye is dragged down.
It's dragged down. The lower eyelid literally is pulled away from it's pulled away from the eyeball itself. And that is called an ectropion. It is any surgeon's worst nightmare. It's any patient's worst nightmare. And so there were hundreds of these people walking around looking like they were accident victims. And so the problem with it is that approach going from the outside, you couldn't fix it. There was no fix. Like I would see people who had 10 operations to try to fix this. And can you imagine you spent your savings to do a surgery that then you become a reconstructive patient?
No.
So what
It's
happened, and there was at
traumatic.
the time, there was only one other person on staff and the entire staff at Northwestern that did oculoplastic surgery. And he had no idea how to manage this. So he was rejecting all of them. He said, I have no answer. There's nothing to do. And so what happened was I developed a technique, which now is a technique used both for this, but also cosmetic, because it's much lower risk, is actually to do the mid-face lift through the inside. So there's a way to go through the inside of the eyelid and then to release those ligaments. And then it's much safer. I won't bore you with the technical detail, but it again, when my colleagues read about this, because I've published it in textbooks and medical journals, it was like everybody looked at it as, of course, that's obvious. Because it is. It's like an obvious way to go. It is less traumatic. You have less swelling. There's less risk. And it's incredibly versatile. And so the only issue is it's a learning curve. But I saved probably close to 100 people who had this condition that otherwise would have had nowhere to go.
That's amazing, Dr. Few.
And so we published our data, and this became a workhorse technique, but now it's been modified over the years to be a workhorse for cosmetic reasons. So, and it's a much safer way to go. You're not going to change the shape of the eye, which is the second worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
And so it's really, again, it goes back to my core tenet of you want to look like yourself still.
I want to ask you about some procedures, and then I want to talk about your skincare line that has very beautiful packaging, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a big packaging girl. It's really, really well done. And it's heavy. It feels good in your hand.
It has some stock to it for sure.
Okay. So what is the most requested procedure in your office right now?
Well, I'm known for kind of a couple of things. Eyes are certainly one of them. A specific form of thread lifting I developed, which has become kind of the standard approach, certainly in North America. And then facelifting. I'm known for the kind of the more understated facelift that still looks really damn good. And those are the three things that I'm most I get the most requests for. It's funny though, lately what has happened, and it just shows how long I've been doing this. I have patients from my early career that were breast patients who either their kids or relatives, they're referring to me because they've said basically, you're the only person I would let my child have breast surgery on. And
that's so cool that you've had generational patients.
Generational care. And so I've had like on Monday, I have a couple of patients who are kind of fall into that category. And
that's amazing.
And so, I've done tens of thousands of breast surgeries. So, I mean, I'm not a stranger to it, but I'm very particular about the nature of the surgery. And at this stage, I don't want to do any surgery or any treatment where I don't feel like I can be like 100% capable. And so,
what do you think about the technology of implants nowadays? I had a friend in LA do a fat transfer into her breast instead. And the implants seem difficult because you have to change them out every 10 or 15 years, right?
So that is one of the common myths. You don't have to necessarily change the implants out. They don't have a set expiration as long as they're functioning the way they're supposed to. And it's pretty easy to follow them with an ultrasound. I think where implants get a bad rap, it's similar. You're going to hear this theme. They get a bad rap when in particular women try to go much bigger than their body can tolerate. You're going to get all kinds of weird risk and complications that are, in my opinion, totally unnecessary.
Interesting.
And fortunately, again, we're seeing this trend of going to, they call it the yoga breast, I guess, or you hear all these terms, but it's like this more petite breast. So for me, it's this whole idea that, you want it to match the body, but in general, implants are incredibly safe when they're done in a thoughtful way. Fat transfer is another incredibly good tool if you have it, but in this world of GLP-1s, that's increasingly difficult. And by the way, if somebody's on a GLP-1 and they do a fat transfer, they're going to lose a lot of that benefit. So,
interesting.
so the fat transfer is a trickier widget to count on long term in this kind of post GLP-1 world.
What's a procedure that doctors hate doing?
I don't want to get in trouble, but I'm gonna tell you it's liposuction. I think most plastic surgeons do not like doing liposuction, especially big volume. It is a ton of manual labor. It's really hard on your body. I have colleagues who've had to have their shoulders replaced. It's no joke. It is the most physically disruptive thing that you can do to yourself.
Whoa.
And it's a lot of, it's just an unnatural torque of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And so I really do very little liposuction now. It's not something I run to.
Thanks for being honest. I appreciate that.
I don't want to get any hate mail from my colleagues for saying, wait a minute, you're giving lipo a bad rap, because liposuction still statistically is the most common plastic surgery procedure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What is a trend or an aesthetic procedure that you think is aging people faster?
I think the biggest one is overfilling. Overfilling the face is guaranteed. And there are some people, I'm not going to say who, in popular culture that have been accused of looking older than they are.
It's like the pillow face, right?
It's the pillow face. It is this is the quickest way. And I've got a lot of research to explain why, but it is the quickest way to make somebody look older.
Can you reverse bad filler, or are you stuck with it?
So that's where the challenge is. You can reverse it, but then they look even older still.
Oh, that's horrible.
And so I have, I had a series of patients I just recently did where I had to melt their filler, and then I did facelifts on them. Because everything literally sagged as a result. And they were people who I think, had they done something a bit more conservative, they would not have been in the same predicament.
Wow.
Yeah.
At the beginning of our conversation, you made a really great and funny comment about how you've done some work on celebrities that that pretend like they haven't had anything done, but obviously you know that they've had something done. I'm curious what your take is on celebrities not admitting having work done.
I could write a book about my experiences, whether it is going to their homes or finding very nondescript ways to meet, or doing things in certain ways where their confidentiality can be, assured. I think the problem is, and it's worse now than ever, social media is brutal. It's ruthless. These people, like a lot of the folks that I've had the pleasure of taking care of, are some of the nicest, most genuine people you could hope to meet. Yeah. And they are ravaged. Their kids are ravaged. They're, people say the cruelest things. And so if you're that person, the last thing you want to do is say, well, yeah, I had plastic surgery, or admit to having plastic surgery, because still then they're going to be ruthless on that. And so I just feel like it's, everybody deserves privacy. And just because you make a living being a public persona, you're a public persona doing a job. Your job is acting or musician. And that doesn't give anybody the right to pick into your private life unless you want to give it up. But I think that's the challenge. And I'm fully on the side of the actor or musician that is famous, because they deserve their privacy. And that's why you will never hear me theorize about who did what or whatever. Because the truth is, either I may have done it, or I want to not even make a theory as to why they did it, because it's not my place. And I think it's the most rude, lowbrow thing somebody can do in my profession. And there are lots of people who theorize. And the thing that gets me, you got me on a roll, is there's some people that I've taken care of where I flip through social media. I don't even follow these people, but I'll flip through, and often it's somebody in another country that is theorizing about one of our well-known American actors. And they'll proceed to list all the things. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I know exactly what they did. And you are full of shit. You're so wrong. You are so wrong. And so it's like a game I play. I look on my phone, I look at Instagram, and I'll watch, they'll list a thing and I'll say, wrong. They'll list another thing, wrong. And so it's like, it's one of these things where people deserve their dignity and privacy. And I think maybe if society as a whole were a little kinder to the celebrity, maybe they'd be willing to give it up. There are celebrities who are open about some of the things they do. But that's an unusual constitution to be that way.
So one of the reasons that I don't feel like we are owed the information is because I find it still very sexist, because we don't really ask men about what procedures they've had done. And once a woman comes out and says they've had something done, it's everywhere. It's in every magazine. We all know, we think about the surgery before we think about their project or them. And so I agree with you. I don't think we're owed anything, but I particularly don't like the gendered practice of even asking.
It is, pun intended, it's two-faced. It is the most two-faced thing. And I agree with you.
You're hilarious.
I think, the gender bias of how you have to keep up as a woman compared to a man, it is unfair. And it's part of this thing. But again, it's interesting. I am starting to see that trend shift a little bit more towards men now. Like, where you as a man, because of the technology, if you're an actor, you can't exactly cruise like you could have. And that's an interesting reality. We're seeing some of that for sure.
Well, I've heard this thing. I don't know if this is sort of like just a thing you hear in Hollywood, that there's the leading man jawline that people have had for years, that they would get an implant and would kind of like redo their jaw, the A-list actors, but men just wouldn't talk about it. So maybe now people are talking about it a little more. Also, I love that your silent smile right now.
I have no comment. I will make no comment. I will make no comment on that one.
How much of how we age is genetics versus how much we can actually influence?
I think genetics are everything. And one of the big deciders that I use to help answer the question of should somebody do something now versus later, is I say, look at, let me meet or look at your mom or your aunt or your grandmother and how they played out. It is especially true for the eye area and the neck. If I have somebody who comes in, they have a slightly fuller neck, but it's not bad. But looking at their mother or grandmother, they have like this really heavy, like double or triple neck. I've said this. I've said literally, you know what? Let's remove the fat there because it's not going to age well. And that's a preemptive strike. And that is doing something in their best interest. It's one area where I will do liposuction and feel good about it. I actually developed and invented this technique called a chin tuck, which involves doing a form of a limited neck lift. It involves repositioning the skin under the neck as well as the deeper structures. It's a modification of it's called a submental neck lift. This is something much more limited, but the results are significant. Cool. It's something I'm getting ready to write up in our medical journal, but basically it's one of those limited access techniques that actually delivers huge results in a discrete, fast recovery way. Also, I think it is a technique that I love to use in that person who is genetically predisposed to a double chin.
Are there any advancements in technology or procedures that haven't hit mass market yet that you're excited about?
Well, that kind of dovetails into my skincare. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing, which is only going to increase, is GLP-1 use. And GLP-1 use is everywhere for all kinds of indications, from diabetes, heart disease, to addictive personality issues, to inflammatory conditions in the body. I just heard somebody talking about using low dose or microdose for hypertension. I mean, the list goes on. And so, right, as of last year, middle of last year, it was estimated 1 in 8 Americans are on a GLP-1. That number is exploding for all these reasons, off-label use and so on. Plus, we expect to have a pill or an inhalational version of it coming out soon, probably by the end of this year. So the reality is, I started researching this effect over the last 2 years because I noted the dramatic change to the skin itself that seemed to be independent of weight loss. And this research over the last couple of years, and I have a lot of experience in kind of scarring, wound healing, and immunology, I used that experience to come up with a likely mechanism for why the skin is significantly directly impacted by GLP-1s. And we just finished a study that is in the process of being submitted for publication. But the net effect is that there is a dramatic effect on the skin itself. And so this whole idea, I've come up with this term that I call GLP face and GLP skin. And it's not meant to make fun of the issue, but rather to describe what everybody's seeing. Mm-hmm. There are men and women that are taking, low dose with a 10-pound weight loss or less, that their skin looks awful. And there's a reason for it. The GLP-1, which is an amazing anti-inflammatory agent, much like steroids are for certain conditions, but it impairs the skin's natural protective power on a number of levels. We've specifically mapped out specific cytokines which are basically the communicators between the cells and the skin, that are affected by this and really have developed an explanation for why the skin is much more sensitive to the sun on a GLP-1, why the skin is much more likely to look dull and sagging on a GLP-1, even with minimal weight loss. And so this is the reason why I actually developed a product that is designed to reverse some of this. And we just finished our clinicals. And when I say you're going to be blown away by this, that is an understatement. It is. And I do believe, based on what we saw in our study, it's a 6-week, it was a placebo controlled, meaning one side of the face had a placebo that looked and felt like the active product. The results were staggering in terms of the subjects, their reported benefit. They all chose the active side. Everybody was blinded to which side was which, and everybody chose, and it was obvious, the dramatic benefit of the active product. So I've been excited about a lot of things professionally. I am beyond excited about this product coming out. And I think it's going to revolutionize the way we look at this issue. Like, you would look at some of these pictures and you would say, this person, the only way this happened is they had a laser.
So, because usually skincare clinicals have, like, I see a before and after, and it's better, but it is sort of like a limited difference. This has a more dramatic before and after.
Dramatic.
Wow.
Dramatic. That's
so cool.
It is beyond dramatic.
What do you use on your face?
So I'll tell you my routine. So what I did, because
you have beautiful skin.
Well, you are so sweet. I was plagued by acne. I mean, as a kid, plagued.
You have no scars.
I mean, it's a miracle on miracle. I think I had a very strict, I know I had a very strict mom that would not let me pick. But in any case, that was a struggle. And it was a struggle to find skincare. And most of my adolescent life, I spent stripping my skin and over drying it and then dealing with hyperpigmentation. And it was like around and around.
That's really hard.
So my products are engineered to be really seen as nutrition for the skin. If I oversimplify it, that's really the way somebody should look at my products. We have engineered them down to the cellular level to be seen as clean food for your skin. Mm-hmm. So it allows the skin to do what it knows how to do best. I think it's ultimate arrogance to think that we as a human being can figure out a way to do better than what centuries of generations have done to engineer the skin's resiliency. So that's the concept. And so really my skin, what I love using, I actually developed an eye rejuvenating serum with SPF because it's really hard to get sunscreen around the eye. I mean, I have some pigment in my under eyes, but it is much better since I've started using this product. It also helps with puffiness. It helps with fine lines and wrinkles. So that's one that I use in the morning. I use our tinted mineral sunscreen, especially on my bald head, because number one, it makes it not so shiny, but also it doesn't cast a ghost. So it doesn't look, you can see it's not like ghost or powdery. It's good for all skin tones. You can have the fairest skin or the darkest skin, does not matter. The micronized kind of physical sunblock works the way that it needs to. There's no artificial chemicals, so you don't have to worry about chemicals that are, harming the skin or causing other problems, which have been talked about.
Yeah.
And then my favorite product, and you didn't ask, but I will tell you, my favorite product, which is our cheapest product and probably the most like underrated or least talked about, is our gentle exfoliating cleanser. This, I think, has been my savior in preventing breakouts. Because prior to me coming up with this, I still would occasionally break out.
Okay.
And so I use that as my wash. We have a sheer moisturizer because my skin favors being oily. For my beard, and it sounds like a lot, but it's 5 minutes in the morning at night. I'll use our Supreme Oil Serum for my bearded area. And that's it.
It's a good routine. I like that.
You don't even put the vitamin C that I've been using.
I'm closer to 60 than 50. I gotta, prevention. I'm not just somebody who talks about it. I actually follow.
You live it.
I live it.
Okay, I know I only have a few minutes left with you, so I'm going to do a little rapid fire if you're okay with that.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, what do you wish more people did to take care of their face before ever seeing a surgeon?
I mean, honestly, I think it is prevention of sun exposure or overbeating the skin with sun and then expecting to have an easy solution. The second would be just good skincare.
Do you think skincare really matters?
I do. I'm living proof of it. I do. I really, really, really do. I
hate hearing this, Dr. Few.
It's low hanging fruit. It's the easiest. If you look at dollar spend, it's the easiest way to keep you. I mean, you're so young and pretty. You just do you do a little bit of skincare and it'll carry you in the most dramatic ways. So yeah.
And that's just a morning and night routine.
Yeah, just morning and night, not going overboard. If you get to the point where you're spending more than 7 minutes on skincare, you've gone too far.
Okay.
I'd say 5 to 7 minutes. I know you're super busy. I'm crazy busy as well, but I can give 5 minutes of self-care.
You're right. 5 minutes is a good barometer. Yeah. Okay, lasers.
Yes.
If someone walks into your office and wants sort of like a fresh face cleanup, what's the laser?
I love Cyton is the name of the company. They have the best lasers. They're all made in the US. They're actually based up north in Northern California. 2 brilliant founders. They engineer everything. They have figured things out. So broadband light or BBL Heroes, their new product. It's a game changer. Halo laser. You can use it in my skin. You use it in your skin. an amazing tool with fast recovery. You're talking to somebody who grew up on CO2 laser. People think, oh, that's like such a great treatment. It's like hitting its fad moment now. That thing is a blowtorch. You can do so much damage. Again, what's old is new. It's like the buccal fat pad with CO2. You're going to change the nature of the skin if you're not careful. I mean, listen, they're very experienced derms and plastic surgeons that know how to do CO2, but man, that's like driving a car that doesn't have anti-lock brakes. The steering is no good, and the tires are bald. And basically in the winter, I think it's a scary technology. So I think that their platform, Moxie, is also one that is amazing. Man, they have come out with hit after hit after hit, and you can dial it in or out. So I love it all day, all day.
That's really nice to hear. I did a really intense laser a few years ago. I forgot what it was called, and I really regret it. First of all, I was in so much pain. I was red for days, but I did it to get rid of some spots on my cheek.
Yeah.
And they came back like a month later.
See, this is the thing. Like if you look at BBL, there's no real downtime. I mean, it's like you do the treatments. It's so much better than, I mean, you don't need to use a blowtorch for a little, like a candle. Like
How often do you do them?
So BBL typically, and again, this is the caveat, be good with sun protection. It doesn't mean you have to hide from the sun, but be good with using sun protection. Ultimately, it can last for 2-3 years. If somebody's out in the sun and they're maybe not so diligent or religious about sun protection, then you're probably doing it every year.
Are there any treatments that actually prevent aging? Or are we all just chasing collagen dreams?
No, I think the biggest treatment, and again, where I don't think it gets enough credit, is Botox, Xeomin, Dysport are the number one ways. I do it myself. Like I tend to favor a crease here. It would be 10 times deeper if I didn't do Botox to the muscles down here. I think it is the key. My analogy is it's like a folding piece of paper. If you're softening or weakening the way that paper folds, the crease is not as deep, and you're going to age better for it. I mean, you can see lots of, again, actors, if you're looking at like the forehead, for example, that will give away age.
Yeah.
And so but also you have to be thoughtful about not over Botoxing. So like I can raise my brow, I can still frown, but it's doing it softer. The goal being you still can move, but you're helping aging.
I was just going to say, I really like that you still have movement and signs of your age in your face, but you look so refreshed. You don't have Botox face.
If I have Botox face, when you meet me in person, there's something that's gone really wrong. But
a lot of people, like you said, in your industry do. I went to a dermatologist and his skin looks like glass and his hair was so perfectly coiffed. And it was in Chicago. I was kind of freaked out.
It's too much. That actually is a secret for like this. And this is probably an important cautionary tale. If you're going to a dermatologist or plastic surgeon and they don't look the way in terms of the way you would want to look philosophically, you probably don't want them to be the one doing your treatment. If they look way overdone and that's not in line, and unless they're going to tell you, yeah, I'm overdone and man, I got carried away with that filler. I wish I didn't do it. Then you need to really think about it. You need to really, really think about it.
What's a sign of aging that you admire?
I have seen some of the most extraordinarily beautiful women who have salt and pepper hair. Like I think it's one of the most interesting subtleties that you can see. And I
cool.
think there are women who I think look better in that light than they did when they had their natural dark pigment in their hair, that is. I also think another thing that actually looks really interesting with age in particular, we can say for women, is when there is just a little bit of loss of volume in the cheek area, a subtle amount. I think that can be really, really, really sexy. And it shows that they have, they may be, in an older age bracket, but at the same time, they still look good.
I like that.
I'm sorry. The one last thing is not erasing all wrinkles. I think that's the last thing I would say.
Thank you for sharing those. I was thinking, as you said, the cheek thing, I was thinking of Demi Moore because she has that and she's still so beautiful and sexy.
Love.
Okay, your future face. What's one procedure? I'm going to go through the generations. Or through the decades, I should say. One procedure you can think about in your 20s if you're going to do anything.
In your 20s, it's Botox.
How about your 30s?
30s, it's going to be laser consideration and strategic Botox, still possible super conservative filler. 40s, you're going to be looking at the things to non-surgically lift, thread lifting, energy-based technologies like soft wave or Ulthera. Ulthera just came out with Ulthera Prime. There are a variety of radio frequency devices that non-surgically lift. Goal being easier to treat something early than waiting for it to all break down. 50s, you get into the striking zone of thinking about surgery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is our 50s or our 60s the facelift years?
50s and 60s are ripe facelift territory because the techniques are much easier for recovery and downtime, but also you get this incredible ability to look really, really good in a way that trying to overdo with fillers will not. So when people are if they're so afraid of surgery to the point where they're willing to overdo a non-surgical treatment, that's worse.
And then 70s and 80s, does that get to a point where it's a little bit scarier to go under or no?
No. I just have done, I've had a series of patients in their 70s, late 70s included, that have done little strategic nip and tucks. Again, goal not being to completely erase, but just to nudge. And that's typically an easier procedure to get through. It has lesser downtime, and it can be a really nice adjunct. Plus, if somebody's in their 70s, they scar beautifully. Like they won't scar.
Wow.
They won't scar. You don't have to worry about a scar. If somebody's 70, you have to really be out of bounds to cause a scar.
Why is that?
Because this is part of the way the keratinocytes and the cells in the dermis actually behave. They're not as robust in their activity. So that's good news, bad news. Bad news is you're going to be more likely to see wrinkled skin. Mm-hmm. Good news is you're going to scar much better.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's a book that you've read that you think everybody should read?
I think everybody should read Essentialism.
And what's one thing that everybody should try one time?
Sushi.
That's a hilarious answer. Dr. Few, I respect you so much. I really like you. You're so fun to talk to. Thank you for sharing so much of your time with me.
It is an absolute pleasure, Danielle. And I feel the same. You're just, especially having been out in LA as long as you have, you've kept your feet on the ground. So it's been a lot of fun to get to know you.
That's really kind. I'm still a Chicago girl at heart.
I love it. That's a gift.